read the numbers on MSP. As Dr. Mungekar said, we have virtually doubled MSP. Take wheat. 2001-2, 610 rupees per quintal. 2002-3, 620 rupees per quintal. 2003-4, kept it at 620 rupees per quintal. So when we came to office, the MSP of wheat was 620 rupees per quintal. This year, we are giving 1,350 rupees per quintal. Point is, whatever the reason, yes, input costs have gone up, I know that. Of course it's gone up. I'm saying it, but doesn't mean that in between 2001, it doesn't mean, Mr. Deputy Leader of the Opposition, please resume your seat. Between 2001, 2002 and 2003, 2004, in a 2-year period, was the cost only rising by 10 rupees a quintal? Please. Or did it rise only by 10 rupees a quintal? Today we are giving prices to farmers. The same approach applies to Manrega. There are people who say you should not give those wages to rural India. People who say you should not give MSP to farmers. If poverty has declined, nobody can argue that poverty has not declined. We can argue about the delta, how much has it declined. But nobody can say poverty has not declined. If poverty has declined, it is because it has declined more in rural India than in urban India. It has declined more in rural India because of Manrega wages and because of MSP. Rural India today has more income than it had before. One in the form of wages for rural workers and one in the form of better MSP for farmers. Poverty has declined.
Then why do they sell the land?
Please.
Why do they sell the land and come to this?
No, please.
Yes. They sell the land because there are 60% of the population of the rural labor force is still dependent on agriculture. And as the population rises, the land does not increase. The land does not increase. There are more and more people burdening on the land. And some will have to migrate. Why do they migrate in China? For the same reason that they migrate here too. They will have to move from rural parts to urban parts. Urbanization, in fact, we can argue that on another day. Urbanization, in fact, is an inevitable concomitant of progress. There's no other way.
It's a global phenomenon.
Show me any country which has made economic progress without urbanization. Anyway, that's a different argument. Please, let me complete this part and then I'll yield you. Therefore, sir, we have to take a position. Are we going to be generous towards those who are extremely poor by giving them better wages, better prices, even if it means, and I say this with responsibility, even if it means a slightly elevated inflation? I'm not defending inflation. Our inflation is high. Consumer price inflation is high. In the last 12 months, we've been able to moderate wholesale price inflation to below 5%. We've been able to contain core inflation to 2%. But consumer price inflation is high. And I take the point that unless we address the supply side constraints, consumer price inflation is not likely to fall. But even if there is slightly elevated inflation, are we going to deny to our people better wages and better prices? Let's take a stand. I've raised 5 questions. Why? I've raised these 5 questions so that we know what is the context in which policy is being made. What are the principles that should drive economic policy? What is the ideology that will point to the direction in which economic policy in this country should go? As I've said, I believe, my party believes, my government believes that we must proceed on the path of fiscal consolidation. We must have a monetary policy that's prime objective is price stability, but must be seen as part of a larger mandate of growth and employment. We must have growth, but the growth must be inclusive and sustainable. We must promote investment, both domestic investment and foreign investment into India. We cannot shut our eyes to foreign investment, and we must show concern for the poor and give the very poor better wages and better prices. It is in that context we are trying to make policy. Since he wants me to yield, I'll yield for a minute. You don't have to respond now. I'm not yielding in your favor. I'm yielding in favor of the deputy leader.
Just half a second.
I should have responded to every paragraph that you spoke.
No, Piyush Goyal, please.
Outside.
When you come to the front benches.
There is a World Bank report of 2013 prepared by a very close friend of yours, well known to you, which says that 1/3 of the world's poor live in India.
Of course.
And it has been written by no one else,
1/7 of the population.
Kaushik Basu, who is the chief economic advisor of the World Bank and who was the chief economic advisor of the government of India and also worked with you. Therefore, I should take your point as solid, or I should believe him, because years ago, India was home to only 20% of the poor.
Sir.
Anyway, I leave it to you.
1/3 of the world's poor do live in India, but 1/6 of the world's population also is in India. Please remember that. We are a large country. That's why when we talk, we only compare ourselves with large countries. And we have to understand that steering a large country's economy in a democratic framework where laws can be made only by consensus, not by fiat, where policies can be implemented only after consultation and consensus, not by a fiat, is a complex task. A task which you performed to the best of your ability in the 6 years that you were in government, a task that we performed to the best of our ability in the 10 years that we are in government. But I think that is why I say we should not constantly compare ourselves with China. In China, I don't have to sit and plead with everybody, please pass the insurance bill. I have to plead only with two people, the General Secretary of the Communist Party and the Prime Minister of the country. Here, I do plead with two people. They're two different people. The leader of the opposition in this house and the leader of the opposition in the other house. But we don't have a consensus yet. Please stand up and say, yes, we must have an insurance bill, and I'll bring the insurance bill tomorrow. But what is the guarantee that the insurance bill will be passed by this house? Therefore, I don't think we should compare ourselves with China. We have chosen...
But before you come to us, you need a consensus with the National Advisory Council.
Please don't, I mean, Arun, let me assure the leader of the opposition, sir, when I go to him, it's after there is a consensus in the UPA. But after I go to him, I would still have to go to my other friends, which they pointed out yesterday, and I replied, first let me get over the opposition, principal opposition, then I'll have to go to the others also. I'll have to go to them and talk to them. But unless I cross the first hurdle, how do I go to the other hurdles?